uptick. I know a lot of people coming into Grand Prix Chicago last weekend and on the Open Series for the past couple of weekends were expecting Mono Blue to actually kind of regain its stranglehold on the format, and it kind of did that, but not really. There's just more. I feel like there's more of it now, but it's still not, the best deck. It's just merely a very good one.
Yeah, I mean, the format's actually surprisingly well balanced. It's just there's, obviously a lot of different flavors of black decks, but the blue Devotion deck, pretty strong against a bunch of decks that people don't play as much anymore because of how much influence the black decks have had on the format.
Ravitz starts off here with a Judge's Familiar into a Frostburn Weird. Gibson, his start looks like a Jund Monsters deck. However, it's really anything but that. Gonna play a Swamp. Let's see what he's gonna deploy. It's gonna be a Courser of Krufix, so he still looks like a Jund Monsters deck. Again, we know that's not the truth. There is Doomway Giant and Eidolon of Blossoms hiding out here along with 4 copies of Mana Bloom and that whole Constellation engine.
That's interesting. Is his only red card Slaughter Games?
Yeah, just Slaughter Games on the sideboard. That is it.
Yeah, I figured that, I mean, you had mentioned that, but I figured he'd at least have a little bit of removal, like Dreadbore or something. Rakdos' return, maybe? I don't know.
An attack for 1 in the air from the Familiar, and Ravitz will follow it up with arguably the best card in the deck, Thassa, God of the Sea.
It'll be interesting to see the value, the evolution of Thassa in the year to come, because it looks like there's intentionally a shortage of double and triple cost, cards for blue decks being printed now, and I think they're going to intentionally starve them for a while, and that's going to have quite the impact on both Thassa and Master of Waves.
So you saw just another Courser here, turning over a copy of Heroes Downfall, a little bit of life gain there for Justice, but Ravitz is exactly where he wants to be right now, working his way towards Devotion. Thassa coming online, which is a very difficult threat to stop. Nightfall Spectre will make sure that this turns on, and will be coming in with Thassa on the ground and Judge's Familiar in the air.
Yeah, I mean, this matchup is just a nightmare, I think, for this Constellation deck.
Seems really bad.
He's got access to Heroes Downfall and Abrupt Decay for a little bit of spot removal, but the thing is he's got a bunch of slow incremental advantage cards, which are the absolute worst way to fight a hyper-tempo-based deck like the Blue Devotion deck. Additionally, obviously, things just look great here because Ravitz has the actual stone nuts. Turn 1, 1-drop, turn 2, 2-drop, turn 3, Thassa, with Nightveil Spectre, Master of Waves, and Rapid Hybridization. Perfect mana. I mean, maybe if he wants to be greedy, he can hope to draw a Mutavault as his next land.
We just grabbed the top card to the bottom, so let's see what Josh does find here for the draw step. It's an island. Close.
Oh, wow. Things are just falling apart.
Yeah, it's got to be tough to be Josh here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Michael Jacob described games of this variety best, as, this draw being the actual Nutter Butters.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's a form of candy or candy bar or something I'm not really super familiar with, but from the use, I think that the implication is that it is the best form of candy bar.
A Hero's Downfall going to take down a Nightveil Spectre. Master Wave is going to come in. Devotion, there will be 2, 3, 4, and 5. So Thassa will still be on. You do see 5 elemental tokens come onto the battlefield here. Josh with a Rapid Hybridization at the ready. Looks like he's going to make the same attack he's been making here with Thassa and Judge's Familiar into the red zone. Gibson with no real great blocks, so looks like he's going to take 6 damage yet again.
Yeah, classic no attacks, no blocks. Not great, but not really a ton you can do against Thassa without just having access to a whole bunch of removal, being a little bit faster of a, more proactive of a strategy.
Gibson will untap. And Abrupt Decay is the card that he has revealed off of the Courser. One thing that Ravitz can do in this situation, because it looks like he's going to go on to win this game relatively easily, is that he can actually pick up information now on what Gibson's deck is. He saw a Brain Maggot, and now you might see a Doomwake Giant. That's actually big for Josh, depending on, sideboarding and stuff now. Seeing Doomwake, but I mean, Doomwake's actually not bad here either.
No, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, this is like the best possible way for Gibson to try to get back into things. Knocking out, obviously, the Master Waves, which was priority number 1, but also the Judge's Familiar, which puts Ravitz behind Devotion enough that Gibson actually has hopes that perhaps Thassa won't wake up next turn.
So see, Ravitz is kind of thumbing that Rapid Hybridization, saying, well, maybe I target something with this and give myself a 3/3. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Maybe I save this just for the Doomwake Giant.
The problem is that if he tries to free roll the 3/3 off his Master Waves, it just doesn't have a big enough impact on the board. It just doesn't do anything.
2 life will be gained here from the 2 Courser triggers. His Overgrown Tomb is going to come into play tapped. Now Ravitz needs to try to close this one out, as maybe the tide is turning here as Coursers are going to come into the red zone. Ravitz will block one of them. And we'll see if anything else will occur. That'll be
So what was interesting is that Ravitz could rapid hybridization his Thassa there just to get a free 3-3 and have his Frostburn Weird and the 3-3 double block a Courser.
At that point, because Thassa's off.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If
Which
he does,
is why he needed to decide whether or not to free roll it earlier.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Now, that was a good draw for Josh. I'm sure Thassa assisted that to the Scry, but Frostburn number 2 shows up. Devotion now is back at 5. Thassa's going to go unblockable. It's going to come in here for 5. It's going to put Gibson down to 7. But the math doesn't work out the way that it was over the past couple of turns because of the land that Gibson played last turn. So now if you're Justice, you're just looking to draw more lands, I think. Even though Mana Bloom's not bad in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, he's got an Abrupt Decay to deal with one of these Frostburn Weirds. He is really hoping for mana off the top, but card draw for his draw phase.
A Brain Maggot is going to be cast here. Again, we know Josh's last card is a Rapid Hybridization. There's also a backup Thassa, but that one's not too important at this point. The Rapid Hybrid is the one that matters, and this is a situation where he could cast it on the Thassa to generate a 3-3 if he'd like.
Yeah, I mean, very likely what he's going to want to do is hit the Doomwake Giant with the Rapid Hybridization to make sure that the Constellation doesn't trigger.
Because now Doomwake Giant's going to start to get to work. The Constellation ability of giving everything -1/-1 on Ravitz's side of the table is what makes things a little bit more difficult. You don't know how many things Justice can play in the turn, but Ravitz has to know what he's up to now. He is a Constellation deck. He's trying to clear these things off of the table. Looks like Ravitz is going to go reaching, and he will take care of that Doomwake Giant now. Of course, with Brain Maggot on the stack, so there has been no Constellation yet. A 3-3 Frog Lizard will come into play. Thassa will bite the dust from the Brain Maggot. We'll see how Gibson wants to move forward, as it looks like it will be an Abrupt Decay. Take care of Frostmourne, shut off the Devotion on Thassa. Gonna gain 2 life, go up to 9. Another play as well. Hero's Downfall there, jeez. Turning the tide very quickly.
Very, very well done.
Attack here for 4 from the Courser is gonna put Ravitz down to 14. Ravitz is gonna have to get his Scry on here. He needs to reassemble. Top card's gonna go to the bottom.
Yeah, that Doomwake Giant was absolutely devastating.
Yes.
It was very, very effective. And that's exactly what Gibson's deck is set up to do, to try to take advantage of. And here we see Eidolon of Blossoms, which, you know, is going to be there a turn earlier because of free rolling the land off the top. Corsair Crufix, so good. It just makes things come together so much more than it looks on the surface.
Thassa scrying cards to the bottom. Ravitz draws a copy of Mutavault. His draw last turn was just a Thassa. All you can do is pass the turn back. We
talked about a comeback.
Yeah, we talked about his start being the Nutter Butters, as you put it, and you were not wrong. That's the best start you could probably get, right?
Yeah, I mean, short of a Mutavault, you know. Absolutely, this is, and now Gibson is just taking over.
It's time to deploy a Brain Maggot. That's going to draw a card, of course. That's the number 3 is going to go away. As long as, of course, Justice does remember. It looks like he didn't trigger his Eidolon on that Brain Maggot. Ravitz is going to try to get a block in here. Looks like he's going to go a little bit of chumping style. But I don't think there's a card in Josh's deck that's going to get him back into this game.
I think so. I mean, Nightveil Spectre into the Master? I don't know. Maybe. No, he's too far behind.
Yeah, at 3 life, he's going to have to pick it up. So Justice Gibson, with a timely draw of Doomwake Giant, able to clear up all those Master of Waves tokens, along with a Judge's Familiar, be able to steal game number 1 here.
Can't call this one too early.
I mean, I thought game 1 was Ravitz's very easily. Not even close.
The discipline, Justice Gibson.
It's sideboard time, my friends. I will take a look at Josh Ravitz's sideboard. We'll get to Justice's in just a moment. Ravitz taking a look here at 3 copies of Dissolve, 3 Gainsay, 2 Negate, a Dispel, a Cyclonic Rift, 2 Domestication, and a Null, and 2 Jace Memory Adept. Domestication has a lot of targets here, so I imagine that will join us. We can make an argument for these counterspells, actually. I mean, at least a Null. I think that's the easy one to bring in. Maybe Dissolve. Maybe not. A Rift could be a good thing to actually draw towards if the game does go later, but I don't think Josh has any interest in letting the game go late.
Yeah, I think he's not going to want to dilute his deck too much either. I do think that those Annulls are going to be Annull's going to be a stone cold killer, absolutely. And Domestication is totally, you know, I mean, the purpose of it is to steal Corsair Crufix. Being able to steal Eidolon of Blossoms is just a free roll. The Gibson sideboard, though, has quite a number of dangerous weapons here. I think he's going to gain quite a bit after sideboarding. His access to a couple Bile Blades, a couple Doom Blades, a couple Gagari Charms. And, I mean, even Thoughtseize is worth considering, because once you have this much spot removal, being able to disrupt them on a blue player that heavily leaves them, you know, just being a deck of Judges, Familiars, and Frostburn Weirds.
Yeah, kind of garbage.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, you know, I think that becoming kind of a rock-like deck is a totally reasonable pseudo-transformation. I mean, he's already sort of like that game one.
It's kind of crazy, too. If you think of that game, that wasn't a game where Gibson ramped at all, either. You know, no Mana Bloom, no Sylvan Caryatid, or, you know, any Mana Acceleration actually trying to keep up. He played a relatively honest game. Cast a Doomwake Giant that was timely. It cleared a lot of things out of the way. Then he was able to start stabilizing the Courser and then pull ahead due to, you know, not ever drawing any really bad cards, like, you know, running lands or anything like that, because, well, that's what Courser does.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, Doomwake Giant definitely got the glory on that one, but it was Courser of Krufix putting in work behind the scenes that extra life was the cushion he needed, and then the extra cards gave him a little bit of an advantage so he could start snowballing.
Well, Ravitz and Gibson will shuffle up here, but SCG Game Night, it looks like, apparently has gone worldwide. We made the announcement a couple weeks back at our Season 2 Invitational, and now anybody can have it, which is pretty freaking awesome. It's coming in September at participating stores. 2 pins and 8 foil tokens per week. New pins and foils each month, beginning every Wednesday in September. Of course, if you do want information, StarCityGames.com/game night, or you can send an email at gamenight@StarCityGames.com. And as you do see there, it is now worldwide. So thank you for all the stores that have already begun inquiring and participating in this when it does come in September. And if you want to, bug your TO, bug your store owner. It's not hard to get set up, just like our IQ series as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome to see more of these nights, more of these opportunities to get together and play cards with people, you know? Getting everybody on the same page, getting a timetable where you know everybody's going to be meeting at the store at the same time.
I mean, just more organized play, just more ability to actually just play Magic at the local store. You gotta love it.
Dude, I just love the fact that there's so much Magic to be played now. I mean, when I was your age, we used to be lucky to get, you know, if you could play one tournament during the week, you know, anytime. If you'd travel as far, and I lived, you know, in Ann Arbor, having access to Ann Arbor and Detroit where there's big populations, and it was still hard to find very many tournaments. Whereas nowadays, there's so many humongous tournaments every weekend. There's big tournaments wherever, you know, whatever local, you know, community you're at. And if you want, there's places to play most days of the week, you know, for most people outside of those hundreds and hundreds of miles outside of cities.
All right, so I think of Ann Arbor, I think of the College of Michigan.
Sure.
Outside of that, I don't really know very much. I don't really know the Detroit, or excuse me, the Michigan, like, the geography. So how far away were you from RIW Hobbies?
RIW Hobbies is only about 15 minutes from Ann Arbor, but I was a kid a long time ago.
Okay.
Pam Willoughby was busy being, you know, an executive at Domino's Pizza or whatever. So it was a different world 18 years ago, 20 years ago.
Gibson's going to take a mulligan down to 6 here. And then, of course,
the old gaming spot back in those days, Campus Collectibles, shout out to everybody who played at Campus Collectibles, if you remember that. Jim ran Campus Collectibles and the Underworld right nearby. The Underworld, very well known among Ann Arborites, I guess.
Now, back in that day, still Pandemonium was the PTQ place?
This is long before that,
That was
too,
before
man.
that, too. Okay,
Yeah,
that's my time. That was for me.
No. We're talking a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah. I still remember the first tournament. The first time I met Eric Taylor, actually, Eric D. Taylor, one of the godfathers, the grandfathers of Magic writing. We were playing up at Campus Collectibles, and we're playing Type 1. And I'm playing a Sinkhole, Nethervoid, Black Vice sort of deck.
Oh, you're having a ball.
Yeah, Eric Taylor was playing a Mind Bomb, Deep Spawn, Animate Dead deck. This is a little bit before he was good.
I know one of those 3 cards. I don't know Mind Bomb or Deep Spawn.
Yeah, Mind Bomb lets each player discard It does 3 damage to each player.
Okay.
But each player has the option of discarding cards to
wow.
prevent 1 damage per card discarded.
Okay, I see what's working here now.
Yeah, it is a card significantly worse than half as good as Lava Spike.
Ravitz is off to a pretty nice start here as well. Not the start that we saw in game 1, but it's still a pretty good one here. Frostburn Weird into Thassa. You see there's a Tidebonder Mage in his hand as well as a Domestication, so he's able to turn on Thassa the very next turn as Gibson did mulligan to 6, does have a 3rd land.
If this is Courser, this is going to be humongous.
I think it might be Courser. It's going to be Hero's Downfall. All right.
Good for Gibson anyway. Yeah, I think Ravitz was salivating at the mouth at the prospect of domesticating a Courser and getting in there with the beatdown.
You see Ravitz keep that card. He's going to fire at Mutavault, come across here for 2. Follow up with a backup Frostburn Weird. So still ready to establish position with Thassa on the very next turn as Gibson does have a Courser that he's thumbing through with his hand as well as a land to play. You see a couple copies of Underworld Connections as well. That combination is very potent, but you need to get it in play first.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the blue deck is a very linear sort of strategy where the more of its things you get, the more, the stronger the other cards are. Using spot removal to 1-for-1 trade, a very, very effective strategy, particularly if you can get something down that starts generating an advantage, like a Planeswalker or a Courser of Kruphix. The problem, of course, being domestication.
Ravitz keeps that card. It was a copy of Rapid Hybridization.
Oh, this is super good, too, because now, when he domesticates the Courser, and Night Veil Spectre on top, now that he domesticates the Courser, if Gibson uses, if Gibson can find an answer to domestication, which there aren't a ton of them, like Golgari Charm works, but even if he can come up with a Golgari Charm for the domestication, Rapid Hybridization, a super, super, super effective way to punish that. Now, Ravitz, though, boldly just gets an extra point of damage in, wanting to be on the beatdown plan, not even leaving the hybridization up.
Gibson's turn is not very impressive. It's just a copy of Underworld Connections, which, if you're Josh, you got to be thrilled with that. You get the ability to attack for 5, 6, 7, 8. Might even just be lethal next turn because there are a couple of Mutavaults out there, islands to pump up.
Yeah, I mean, he's threatening lethal. Yeah. Okay, so Mutavault can block.
Ravitz will scry here with Thassa. Keeps Night.
Oh, he already knows that.
Yeah, he knows that because of Courser, so sure.
Yeah, he just wants to have some devotion backup and having another direction of threat.
Spectre does get played pre-combat, so there is no removal spell to mess up devotion.
Yeah, he just wants to make sure that Doomblade doesn't throw off Thassa's ability to get in there.
Now everybody's going to come in the red zone here, so this will be an attack for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's not lethal, but you have to imagine that Mutavault's going to get in front of something. And it's going to trade with Mutavaults. Josh says, that's fine with me. 5, 6, 7, 8 points of damage. Gibson will go down to 4, and Ravitz with a commanding lead this game. And this is not a game that Doomwake Giant can actually get Gibson back into.
I'm not throwing around the term nutter butter.
You did earlier.
I've learned my lesson. I can only assume Gibson is going off next turn. But it may be 1 turn too late. Underworld Connections.
He wants to see one more.
It is Wheel of Fortune. That is no, it is not Wheel of Fortune.
Gibson will pass the turn back. He'll be picking up his permanence in just a second. I think this is just an attempt at an information game, taking a look at the top card that Courser does provide. It is a Thassa, a card that, of course, Gibson already knows is in Ravitz's deck. Ravitz will deploy a Bind of Thassa. And you imagine, as he shrugs his shoulders, coming here with everybody, and Gibson will scoop him up. So Josh Ravitz is going to even things up here against Justin Gibson. Mono Blue Devotion ties it up against Black Green Constellation.
It's nice to have a win like that sometimes. You're right off the back of a game where it looked like everything was going perfectly for Ravitz, and somehow it all kind of fell apart. And Ravitz is a rock. He's not one to tilt, but it's still nice to have another game that reaffirms, wait a minute, there's a reason this deck is good. There's a reason I'm doing this. I know what I'm doing. I'm smashing face with blue creatures.
Where do you think this deck fits in the format right now? I mean, Mono Blue, around Pro Tour Theros, you could argue was the best deck at that tournament. It performed very well, of course. Ends up winning the tournament, putting a lot of players on top 8 with it as well. And it did really well there, kind of stood toe-to-toe with Mono Black Devotion through Theros. Born of the Gods happens. It doesn't change very much. Mono Black gets better. Mono Blue doesn't really get any additions. And then with the last set, Journey to Nyx, again, doesn't really change very much. So now it becomes more of like a right place, right time metagame-esque deck instead of the power level of this deck is very high. Do you still think this is a pretty good choice for tournaments?
Well, I've never really been a huge fan of it. However, I think that it was an awesome choice when people weren't prepared. It was absolutely just incredible when people weren't prepared. But now I think the most interesting element of it as a choice is looking at the win percentages. As a whole, Mono Blue Devotion generally has a losing percentage versus the field. However, a number of people who have played Mono Blue a lot, like the Mono Blue aficionados, they have incredible win percentages, which suggests that there's actually a lot more play to the Mono Blue deck than people realize. I mean, I know Luis Scott Vargas said he actually thinks that playing with Mono Blue is among the most skill-testing decks in the format right now. I mean, sometimes Thoughtseize mirrors have a tendency to not always give enough edge to, you know, if people are playing identical mirrors, there isn't a huge edge to be gained. Whereas Mono Blue, the win percentage of a strong Mono Blue player versus somebody who's just picking the deck up, quite dramatic. And then the flip side of that is that Mono Blue is very much a tempo-based deck, and it's a deck that is easy to lose against if you're not prepared, if you're not familiar with the dance, if you don't know the timing. And as a result, Mono Blue has historically been a better choice against unprepared opponents. You know, and I think that that the result then is that when Mono Blue hasn't been popular for a while, it has a, you know, there's new purpose to play it again. You get a surge because there's some number of people who haven't been playing it lately. And the tough thing though is that it has basically no new tricks. About the closest thing it has to a new trick is domestication becoming such a killer. And it always had domestication, but domestication has new purpose now that Courser of Crufix is such a pillar of the format.
Yeah, no new tricks, as you mentioned. Maybe it'll get some in M15, maybe it won't. We'll find out, of course, as more of that set does get revealed. But, I mean, the power level of the deck is still there. I mean, what it's doing is still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely puts a huge amount of pressure on you to play lots of spot removal. And it's one of the reasons, I mean, I have a lot of respect for the deck. It's one of the reasons why I wouldn't be caught dead not playing a black deck.
Yeah.
Because the black decks are generally pretty effective against the blue decks.
Sylvan Caryatid to start things off here for Gibson. Finally, some acceleration. We have not seen that in the first two games between that and Mana Bloom. He hasn't found those on the early turns, but he does have one right now. Ravitz with a Frostburn Weird on turn 2 yet again. And we'll see what Gibson can accelerate into as he starts with a Mutavault. You see there's a Doomblade over there. It looks like his hand may be pretty reactive at this point. And this is going to be an Abrupt Decay to take care of that Frostburn Weird. As Ravitz does draw a card, has a third land. Looks like he has Thassa again, and he does. So Thassa, God of the Sea, showing up on turn 3 all 3 games. Very important here for Ravitz.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the card selection is going to be important here because Ravitz's hand is some cold garbage. So being able to actually find some business is going to be crucial.
An Eidolon of Blossoms there for Gibson. We'll find him a new card, so that engine's going to start to work to get online here. Ravitz's hand, as you mentioned, not the best. A couple of islands, a Bident, and a mystery card. Dissolve is the card he's picked up, so looks like he's going a little bit more reactive after sideboard.
Yeah, and I think that that it's going to be really tough because even if he can dissolve one of these Doomwake Giants, I think the second Doomwake Giant, whatever Doomwake Giant actually hits, is going to be backbreaking. And it looks like, yeah, by dropping the Bident, you know, he's threatening next turn to wake up Thassa and have Dissolve backup. But if Doomwake Giant actually hits the board, I think it will be too late.
Well, there's your 5th land, so I think it's coming.
Yeah, this is a real tough spot for Ravitz. The Gibson is going to effectively just be able to draw extra cards every single turn.
This is a little bit surprising, just not to play Doomwake Giant right now. Actually holds it in his hand, fires up Mutavault, sends in with the Eidolon of Blossoms, and simply passes the turn back. That's got to be a bit surprising.
So I think what he's representing is that he wants to use a spot removal spell on whatever creature Ravitz plays because he doesn't want to get hit by the Thassa.
Sure, turn off Devotion.
Yeah, the tough thing though is that, I mean, if you had Doomwake Giant, you could just block the Thassa that turn. I guess Thassa could be unblockable if the Devotion card was cheap, but...
Well, here's a Tidebinder Mage, so Ravitz is going to try to turn on Thassa, and it's going to work briefly. But as you mentioned, there's probably a removal spell here to get that off of the table. There's a Doomblade now. Yeah, this is a really good spot, actually, for Dissolve. And Tidebonder did shut down the Eidolon, so that's not going to get on tap.
Yeah,
in quotes. As now here comes Thassa in the red zone, it's going to cantrip here. So that's a really, really good turn there for Ravitz.
Yeah, I mean, under the circumstances, that was about the best that he could hope for it to play out. But I think that once Gibson has both Eidolon of Blossoms and Doomwake Giant going, he's going to just shred Ravitz's team.
Well, he needs to get that Doomwake online right now, I think. If that's the plan, got to get that thing out here right now, and this is going to be a Doomwake Giant, so...
Get it on the floor.
The 4/6 is going to come in. It's going to cantrip. It'll draw Justice, a Swamp. He hasn't played a land yet this turn.
It's interesting to see the dueling, Eidolon of Blossoms versus Bident of Thassa. So both players are just going to be card rich. And then Thassa versus Doomwake Giant in terms of the heavy hitters. The big difference, of course, Gibson has a number of ways to, lots of removal spells that he can use to disrupt Ravitz, whereas Ravitz has 1/1s for 1 and 1/4s for 2.
Ravitz is going to make both these unblockable. He's coming into the red zone yet again. Going to attack here for 7. 2 cards coming. It's Island and Domestication. Gibson's down to 4. I think Ravitz's thought process here is, you know what? Let's just race.
Yeah, I mean, he's threatening to use the Bident here to make sure that the Doomwake Giant actually attacks. Sylvan Caryatid with the special ability of not being able to.
This is a Brain Maggot. Ravitz is going to have to reveal that hand here, we imagine. He's going to stack a couple of effects.
So what's challenging is that despite how much awesome stuff Gibson has going for him, his life total is so low he can't take another hit from Thassa. He literally needs to keep Ravitz's Devotion off of 5.
He opted to take a counterspell here, so here is a Mana Bloom. That'll trigger some stuff. And so you see Ravitz pausing here just to make sure the game state is appropriate. There you do see the freshly cast Mana Bloom. A card that'll be rotating out soon, unfortunately, for the Constellation deck. But now that it has it, it is a pretty powerful engine. It looks like there's a little bit of clarification on Brain Maggot, which were triggers announced for Doomwake Giant and Eidolon. Same thing can be said for Mana Bloom as well. So just making sure that the game state here is kosher. Hey, if under the new rules, they're your triggers. You have to announce each of them. So that is certainly the case here for Eidolon and the Doomwake Giant. This looks like everything is okay. Play's going to progress here. Now in comes Mutavault.
What an aggressive attack. Wow.
Yeah, a little surprised by this. It looks like Ravitz has the ability to turn on Devotion. I'm surprised that Brain Maggot took the Dissolve instead of the Nightveil Spectre. But I'm not sure.
There's Domestication too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a great card for Brain Maggot to actually take. Gibson may have just left
not
himself
even
dead on board.
threatening a spot removal spell to undo it seems bold.
There's a land. There's Nightveil Spectre. Can also play Frostburn Weird, and now he just makes Thassa unblockable, and that is going to do it. So Josh Ravitz is going to win this match over Justice Gibson, 2-1. Mono Blue Devotion takes down the Constellation deck.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that not playing that Doomwake Giant the turn earlier and instead walking into the Dissolve, that proved to be the decisive game, the decisive turn. And Ravitz definitely set himself up to have chances there. He played the Bident tapping out earlier so that he'd have something going for him. And then when he, had one turn that he came out ahead on, he was able to start riding that advantage, drawing a few extra cards and putting some pressure on Gibson's life total.
Josh Ravitz, the Washington State champion, wins this match 2-1. Mono Blue Devotion moving on to 2-0. We'll, of course, be following his progress over the course of the weekend.
The champ is here. The Washington State champ.
The Washington State champ, yes. He is certainly here in attendance. We'll bring him back.